What is going on, y'all? KMBest here to introduce you to Marvel Snap's newest character, Prodigy. Prodigy is a mutant whose power is to be able to telepathically absorb the abilities and skills of people near him, and that really shows on this card. This is Prodigy's Marvel Snap card, a 3/4 with an on-reveal ability that allows him to, if he is in the back row, copy the card directly in front of him. That's a really fascinating ability that allows him a lot of very unique play styles that no other card in Marvel Snap can really have access to. Prodigy can do anything as long as the very specific requirements of his power are met. So how are we going to optimize what Prodigy is able to do? Again, if he can do anything, how do we pick just one thing for him to do when building a deck? There are a couple of things that come to mind when it comes to maximizing Prodigy, and while you might think the first is cool stuff for him to copy, I think what you actually need is ways to make sure that this guy is copying the stuff you want him to copy. So a card like Kitty Pryde could be a great pairing with this new X-Man. By the same token, Sam Wilson's shield allows you to manipulate board space and make sure that Prodigy is actually able to copy the cards that you want to copy. But what exactly are we trying to copy? I think there's a couple different ways to approach Prodigy. The first is to try to play Prodigy in a deck that is looking to copy a 4-cost linchpin card like Galacta. The power of Agamotto's spell, Images of Icon, has shown us that copying Galacta and Gwenpool can be a really powerful ability to bring to bear in Marvel Snap games. This isn't going to full copy it, but it will give you an extra trigger of some of the most powerful 4-cost cards in the game. Having 2 Galactas available to you after playing Galacta on 4 and then 1-drop Prodigy in that lane on 5 alongside another 1-drop outside of that lane, that is quite a lot of power. Then there's the maximalist approach, and this is just playing something in the front that you just want to be able to double, and that when you double it, you will just immediately win that lane. Iron Man comes to mind, Gore comes to mind, Living Tribunal decks come to mind. The possibilities genuinely are endless. So let's take a look at some decks I've brewed up for Prodigy. One of the major ways I approach deck building is trying to make it as easy as possible for the new card to be good. When a new card releases, I want to put it in a position to succeed so I can evaluate how strong it's actually going to be in a general normal game of Marvel Snap. In this deck, Prodigy is here to copy Galacta, to copy Gwenpool, and to copy Elsa Bloodstone. This is a deck that is exceedingly good at making sure he's copying the right stuff, as long as that stuff ends up in the front of the location. Even if it ends up in the second spot and Prodigy has to fill the location in order to get that copy going, you're still going to be okay with that because you have multiple cards that can leave locations and free up that space in order to better apply pressure later in the game. It's not good to fill locations early, so we don't want to put ourselves in situations where we end up doing that. Sam Wilson's shield, allowing you to move around, is a great option for making sure you can manipulate the spaces on the board so Prodigy copies the stuff you want. Kitty Pryde, similarly, is going to do very much the same thing. The rest of this deck is looking to play a powerful points and interaction game. Even cards like Jeff moving around make it hard for your opponent to know exactly where your points are going to be on the final turn of the game. This is a deck that has a lot of good point potential in it, with Prodigy here to double up on your big boosters. What this deck does is rely on the cards that Prodigy is copying in order to make all of its points very confusingly placed. By providing a force multiplier, Prodigy becoming a second Galacta, Prodigy becoming a second Gwenpool, there's a lot that he adds to this archetype. Another card that is very interesting with Prodigy is the Hood. A lot of decks are very interested in getting multiple procs off of the Hood, but especially you can be even more interested in it when you're going to be able to misery it. So if you play something like the Hood and then a 2-drop and then Prodigy in that lane to copy the hood, and then suddenly you misery that lane, you have 4 6-power, 1-cost demons. That's just a powerful thing to do. That is to say nothing of the Victoria hand of it all, making those demons go up to 8. Maybe you Frigga her, they're 10-power demons. There's something that could be very real where it comes to this use of Prodigy. In addition, it could be a good copier for Victoria Hand. This is a deck that really likes to have the ability to multiply Victoria Hand procs. If you set yourself up in the right way, Prodigy can be a second Victoria Hand, which you care very deeply about, and he can be that in a pinch. You don't need him to always be that, you just need to have the option. One thing I'm sure everyone has noticed about Prodigy by this point is that he is, of course, a 3-cost card, which means there are, of course, things to explore in Silver Surfer builds. He could be an interesting force multiplier with Captain Carter, although he'll always be in the back lane. That can still be a valuable thing to contribute, copying a Captain Carter and buffing the card that is next to him in the back lane. There's something to be said for a card that just will be able to fill a lot of roles. We, of course, have our usual Sam Wilson in here to help with space manipulation. Generally speaking, in this deck, I sort of envision him as like a secondary lane winner, where your primary lane winners are like, you have your Brood, that's going to win a lane, and then you need to figure out how you're going to win another lane, and he's usually the card that you're going to be looking to for that, to reinforce that lane. Of course, we also still do have the Galacta line, right? Like, you are still going to be able to play Galacta in a lane, move Sam Wilson's shield into that lane, and then put Prodigy in that lane to copy the Galacta. That's a very real play you're going to be able to make. What if we get a little more maximalist with it? What if we start aiming for Prodigy and then multipliers? We have here a world where Prodigy could copy something like a Moonstone. A world where Prodigy could copy a Mr. Fantastic under a Moonstone. A world where Prodigy could do so many incredible different things. And I think this is sort of what people are thinking of when they're playing Prodigy and when they're looking for it. Now, one thing that I will note here is I have opted for an anti-venom package in here, in large part because making something free really helps when it comes to manipulating board slots. Of course, we are also looking at a Sam Wilson because Prodigy cares deeply about those board slots. What if we get even more maximalist? What if Prodigy is our backup Mystique / backup Iron Lad that is just being able to go in our Tribunal deck and make sure that we're doing something ridiculous at some point in the game? One of the problems that this deck can have is that your sequencing isn't always there to make Mystique be what you need her to be, but Prodigy gets to be a little bit more of a comfortable version of Mystique in a deck like this, allowing you to get those copied effects much later if you had to commit something like an Iron Man off a Ravonna early for lack of other better things to do. So, we've established that Prodigy can be anything in the game if the circumstances line up right. He can be the cutest baby land shark you ever did see, or a master of magnetism, oh so dastardly, or even, most terrifyingly, a streamer who ran out of costumes before hitting 3. The only question now is, what will he be for you? What will you do with Prodigy? Thank you so much to Marvel Snap for letting me make this video. I genuinely appreciate it, and I love doing stuff like this. Best of luck to anyone trying Prodigy out there on the battlefield today.